Hello everybody, Joseph Smith here at Travel Tax. This is episode number 4 of our YouTube series, and it is March 7th, 2020. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, we're glad you have come and welcome you. Make sure you click that little subscribe button somewhere down there at the bottom of your screen so you will be one of the first to know when we post new videos. March 7th, we are getting very close, faster than you realize, to that April 15th deadline. And as many of you know, April 15th is the deadline in the United States for filing federal and most state tax returns. But we're like most established tax practices. The closer we get to that deadline, the faster our slots fill up, and we will come to a point where we anticipate all of our slots are filled, and that means we begin filing extensions. Now, I want to go over what extensions do and what they are not, because one of the biggest concerns that clients have whenever it's time to file an extension is that they have a greater chance of being audited. And that's not the case. Whether you file an extension or not doesn't necessarily trigger an audit. Filing an extension actually is the more prudent and responsible thing to do if you know you're not going to file on time, which is more of an indicator that you know how to handle your affairs than not filing the extension and filing late. So extensions are not audit triggers. The other concern that a lot of clients have is, will I be penalized? And the answer is potentially, but it's only in situations in which you owe. And I'm going to walk you through some of the penalties, because sometimes you will find yourself owing, and the additional charges are really not that much. Well, let's walk through it. There are 4 types of charges that the IRS have. There is the late filing penalty, the late payment penalty, interest, and then this other little thing called an underpayment penalty, which if you have that's already happened because you didn't pay enough during the year. So we're not going to talk about that on this video. But let's talk first about the late filing penalty. This is what the extension kills. A late filing penalty is imposed by the IRS when you don't file on time and you owe. If you have a refund, you're not going to have a late filing penalty. But if you owe and do not file an extension and you file late, the late filing penalty is 5% per month up to 25%. So let's do an illustration here. Let's say you owe $1,000 and you don't pay it till June. April 15th comes around and you don't file an extension. Well, you've had half of an April, which counts for a whole month, by the way, May, then you're paying in June. That's 3 months, 5% per month, 15%, you owe $1,000, that means you're going to owe $1,150. Had you filed the extension and filed in June and still owed $1,000, you would not be hit with that 5% per month penalty. That's extensions for you, and that's why they're good. But they only extend the filing deadline, because now we have to deal with the other charges that the IRS has. So let's say you owe $1,000 again, but you file the extension, and again you don't pay till June. The next type of penalty that the IRS may impose is called a late payment penalty. This is different from a late filing penalty. An extension gets you out of the late filing penalty. It does not get you out of a late payment penalty. But the late payment penalty is nowhere near the late filing penalty. Instead of 5%, the late payment penalty is 0.5%, a 0.5% per month. Multiply that by 12, it's 6%. That's cheaper than most credit cards. So if you owe $1,000 and you don't pay that till June, but you have an extension, you're only going to see 1.5% added to your final tax bill. Way less than the 5% per month. The third kind of charge that the IRS has is called interest. And interest does accumulate on top of the penalties. And the interest rate can be anywhere from 4 to 6% depending on the interest rate environment and the Fed funds rate. But even having a 6% interest rate on top of a late payment penalty, that's 12% per year if you let it ride that long. And 12% per year is still cheaper than most credit cards. So filing an extension keeps things contained, especially if you owe. But what if you have refunds? If you have refunds, there's nothing to worry about. You don't even need an extension if you have refunds, because penalties and interest only occur when you owe and you don't pay on time. So as you get closer and closer to this deadline and you just can't file, getting the extension in gives you a lot of peace of mind and gives you an opportunity to focus on this stuff when you have a clearer head. I have not filed my own return since earlier than October 1st for the last 15 years. Obviously, I spend the whole tax season doing other people's returns, so I don't really have time to do that. But still, I usually do not want that stress of having to do all of that up against a deadline while I am busy doing other people's returns. So I file an extension immediately in January. And to be honest with you, the more complicated your life is, the more the normal way of approaching your taxes might be to always file an extension, especially if you're on the road a lot and have to wait a long time for mail to circulate around to you, or it's difficult to obtain all your documents. So as we get closer to that, extensions are your best friend. They're not an enemy, and they're not something that you need to be concerned about. So until next time, we'll look to talk to you again later, and have a good Easter coming up.